Okay, go.
Hello, Professor. My topic today is non-exhaustive testing of web service components. Um, in the present world, there is an increasing demand for web services. So, testing web services is a need, and which is not as easy as testing any software program. So, testing becomes complicated, and this paper deals with that testing of web services. Web services is nothing but an API which is used to communicate between two computers with two different platforms through some protocols which uses XML for communicating, which uses WSDL, and which is nothing but a web service description language, and it uses a protocol called SOAP with to communicate between each other. And this is the diagram for web services. So this is the requester and this is the provider. So these two people communicate through a SOAP protocol, and it sends data through WSDL, which is nothing but XML, to a service broker, which is nothing but universal discovery, discovery and integration. Then I've made a slide for web service characteristics, which is nothing but can interact. The web services should be able to interact with and it should be platform and programming language agnostic, and XML encoded interaction mechanism. Payload is XML, and so on. Types of testing of web services. In this paper, there are many types, which talks about generic framework, then Beppel unit test framework, then agent-based testing approach, then framework for service-oriented testing of web services. I'll just talk about the first two because of the time constraint. This is the overview of the generic framework. Here in this framework, we see the web service in the middle. This one sends a request. This web service is connected to the service user through a SOAP. So while this is connected to a service user through the SOAP protocol, we collect the runtime data, which is going between the two requester and the sender, and we collect the data and place it in the database. And there is another method which generates a test data, which is from the test data generation. So once we get the runtime data and the test data, we put that into a test data analysis, and we analyze the data, and that analyzed data is sent to a database, and that is executed for the web service. So the testing of web service is difficult because there are no interfaces to it. We develop a framework for that. Overview of the generic framework, which I told, the modules. First thing is we focus on the acquisition of the test data, and the second one is the selection of the test data, and the third one is the execution of the test data, and then we capture the results and we report it. So in the acquisition of test data, we have two methods where we get data from the test data generator and we collect the runtime information. The test data generation is nothing but the basic WSDL. So the basic WSDL will have the description of how the data should look like. So the basic WSDL with the contract information will have the preconditions and the post conditions, which generates a test data. And runtime information is nothing but we get the runtime data. I'll talk about it in the other slide. Then selecting the data, execution of data, and this one. So this one we frame an architecture which is a 3-layered architecture, which has a storage layer, functionality layer, and interface layer. In the storage layer, the test data and the runtime data is placed in a database, and the test reports and test scripts are placed in the files. Then in the functionality layer, we have a contract editing and checking module, and test data generation module, runtime data collection module, test data selection module. And in the interface layer, we have an API which connects to other services or requesters, and the user interface. So we'll talk about the functionality layer in detail. First we go to the contract editing and checking. Here we check the we get the contract information, and if we have to make changes, we delete it or we update it, and we add, delete, and remove the preconditions and the post conditions. And we check the syntax of the inputted contract and transform into source code. So it checks for the syntax as well as the addition and deletions of pre and post conditions. Test data generation. In this test data generation, the implementation is mainly parsing the preconditions and the post conditions of each web services to get a relational expression and the preconditions. So if we take an example like x is greater than 5, we take this condition and we make a division point, and we divide the range into many sub-ranges, and we take the sub-range and along with the boundary conditions, and we get the test data. This is nothing but it gets the basic visitor information as well as the contract information. In runtime collection, runtime information collection, we actually wrap the original web service for the purpose of acquiring runtime information. We collect the runtime input and output. I'll show you this by this example. Here, this web service will be wrapped. This one will be wrapped as a web service. So this one gets the port number as this one, and this one will be changed. So whenever this user request for something, instead of going to this, it goes to this, and this will be called by this, and this sends the data to this, and this sends the data to this. In this process, this will collect the runtime information. So it is called wrapping of the original web service. So this will act as a web service. In turn, it collects input and output data.